I think it was 2013, 2014, New York City Ballet contacted me, and I've never been to the ballet in my entire life. And they said, well, we're doing these things called the art series. We've always had artists in the history of the New York City Ballet working with the ballet, with our building. We have a big collection of art there. We'd love you to do a piece, a project there. And I went there and I met with the dancers and I went to see a ballet, and the idea was pretty simple, was to try to work with all the dancers of the company, regardless their position, if they're principal, quarter ballet, or whoever they are. I wanted them to help me sculpt an eye in paper. So we shot in a big studio, put the camera very high in the ceiling, and then walk on the floor trying to sculpt the paper so that with their body and with the paper, it would create the shape of an eye. It was amazing because each of them would come in between classes. Sometimes I would get big groups of them, and then we'll build the image section by sections, but in real life. And then after that, we installed it at the New York City Ballet on the entire floor of the atrium. The way it works, if you go see the ballet there, is that when you're inside the theater, the more you pay money, the lower on the floor you are, which means that you are on ground floor than if you pay less money on the first floor, second floor, third floor, fifth floor, whatever. And the interesting thing is when you have a break in between an intermission, you go out of the theater at your own floor, and then you end up in this atrium that have all these balconies. And the best place to see the piece was actually from where the cheapest tickets are, on the last floor, which is most of the people that see the ballet from the ground floor never get to go up there. But there they had to go up there, because if not, you're just walking on the piece and it's so big that you don't even realize, what you're walking on. And so we did the installation there, which was a premiere for New York City Ballet to also, do an installation like that where the principals and the quarter ballet and all are all mixed together, and there's no, hierarchy in the way they're represented in the piece. And that had led to also pasting the outside. And I remember asking about doing something on stage, but they said, well, you can't do something on stage. It's the way it works here. It's you have a choreographer that then works with dancers and create a piece, then we host on stage. And I said, well, can I do that? Can I do one? And after a couple, weeks, they came back to me and said, okay, on a separate time, so maybe 6 months later, you can direct the ballet. We'll give you the key. And we've never done that before to give you, we know you never choreographed before. We know you only see one ballet in your life, but we give you the opportunity to make a 10-minute ballet. And the story I wanted to tell in that ballet was the story of the riots that had happened in France, and that's where my work had started, because I pasted in the suburbs of Paris, on the buildings of the projects, and then the riot of 2005 exploded in front of my work, and that's how, my work started. And so I wanted to tell the story from the perspective of my friend Laj Lee, who's a filmmaker and who was documenting the riots, and from the perspective of the media. So I took a young journalist who's documenting from the other side, and she was played by Lorraine Lovett, who's now a principal at New York City Ballet, but at the time she was a really young dancer at New York City Ballet. And I invited Lil Buck, who's not from New York City Ballet, who's this amazing dancer who, invented his own style of dance, and who would play Laj Lee inside the ballet. And then we worked with 40 other dancers from the company. And the process was amazing, because for a couple months I had to really, I had to start with the music. So the music, I started with Woodkid, who composed everything, and then reorchestrated with Hans Zimmer and Pharrell Williams and Ben Wolfish. So it was amazing to be able to work with all those musicians to build this. And then I had to work in, at the rehearsal room there with all the dancers. I had class every day to conduct that ballet, except that I didn't know any of the wording, any of the, the way of doing a ballet. So I would just mimic what I would want to see, how you throw a Molotov cocktail, and what would be the closest dance foot to that. And they would try, and I would say, oh, this one, what's that move called. That's the closest to throwing a Molotov cocktail. And so that's how we wrote the whole ballet and told the whole story. And of course, I inserted a bit of video in it, and all the dancers had, a costume that I've worked on with Mark Happel, who's the, head of the costume and at New York City Ballet, and who made it where there's all those dots that doesn't make sense the whole ballet. And at the end, when everyone line up, you see those eyes, which was half of the eye of Lauren Lovett, half of the eye of Lil Buck. And then when they would blink at the end, when they would do the final thing, then the eye would blink. So it was an amazing experience, and actually it played, for 10 days at New York City Ballet, and now it's in their collection, so it could replay anytime. But I wanted to film it. I wanted to create a short film about it. So I took some of the dancers from New York City Ballet, but mainly Lauren Lovett and Lil Buck. Then I went to Paris and reorchestrated with the, Opera Garnier dancers. Took them in the projects where the riots really happened, and then we reenact the riots with the people who were involved in the riots, with the kids who are dancing in that neighborhood, and we re-shot this in the neighborhood. And for me, that piece, is really what connects to my work the deepest, because I never thought that I could do a ballet in the neighborhood. And I have to say that when I saw the people there looking at the stage we built, and kids, and dancers running on tutu ballet all over the neighborhood, it was amazing to see the reactions of the people, but also how the people got involved. You have to imagine that whatever you see in that film, and the film is only shown in museums and exhibitions because we want the sound to be good, but I've put a little trailer online to see. Every light in the building, it's because someone let it on so that to compose our frame. So the whole neighborhood got involved in that. And so for me, that's, of course, layers behind the dance, but that was an important one because I always love to involve the community and the people inside the project, because truly without them, it wouldn't have been possible.